How have you been going money-wise throughout the pandemic? Has perhaps you've been struggling, or maybe you've really been enjoying that extra government help that you've been receiving? Many of us, I'm sure, have been feeling the extra tug on our purse strings recently, and perhaps you're looking for a little bit of guidance or help on what you can do to manage your spending, or perhaps learn how to budget better. On the line, I've got Amanda Cassar, who's a financial advisor from wealthplanningpartners.com.au. And I just wanted to know, Amber, amid the COVID pandemic, many people have probably been feeling that extra pull on their wallets recently. And how best can we handle our money in these crazy times?
Well, one of the most important things to do, obviously, is get a handle on our spend. It's very, very easy these days with subscriptions and that sort of stuff to just start collecting quite a few expenses that we forget about. So looking at our statements again, even if that's on our phone or via an app or the old paper-based ones, if that still happens, just to make sure that we know what we're looking at. Now, thankfully, the government gives a really good website that's free that can help us with this. We've got the ASIC Money Smart website. So if you just pop in Money Smart Budget Planner, you'll be able to duck into that and do a budget, which, look, I know the idea or the very word can often make people's eyes glaze over, but I just think try and have a great idea of what the outcome is that you want to achieve by getting on track with your budget. I know a client of mine who was made redundant ended up finding an extra $1,200 a month when she went through her budget that she could cut back on. So that was a big win for her.
As someone who seriously needs to learn how to budget, but has no idea where to start, where should I start when I'm looking at my budget and expenses that perhaps I could drop?
Usually that comes into what we call the discretionary spend. So they're the things that aren't 100% needed. So if you put things, I suppose, into your needs and your wants, you absolutely need to be able to pay for food each week, to cover your rent or your mortgage payments. If you have minimums on credit cards, usually those sort of things can't be turned off. It's where we've ended up with maybe a Netflix subscription that does 2 or 3 people, or we've also got Stan, or we've also got a Spotify subscription, or a gym membership that we're not using anymore. Those sort of things are where we can be looking at where we can cut back. It might be even I'm stopping at the coffee shop every day on the way to work, getting my $7 mocha plus my $5 banana bread. You know, that all adds up every week. Or, you know, we've stopped making our lunches and are spending $20, $25 a day. So those things that aren't necessary, that are costing us, they're usually the first places we should look to go, is it really necessary? And I'm not saying don't do any of it. I mean, life would be pretty boring if we couldn't have a splurge on a coffee now and then, but just making sure it's not out of control if things are really hard right now.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely had to check my spending, especially amid the lockdown a few months ago when I had to delete all the shopping apps off my phone because I found myself scrolling through them like they were a magazine, and it definitely took a toll on my bank account, which was rather unnecessary, but thoroughly enjoyed because it was like Christmas.
Until you got the bill in the following month and went, oh no.
Yeah, I checked my bank statements. I was like, something needs to change, so I had to delete the apps. So,
good idea. I know some people were even getting caught with the online gambling very quickly, just being bored, sit at home, have a few cracks on the pokies from an app, and suddenly said to their wife, like, you know, take my phone off me. I can't be trusted. So, yeah, it's easy to do when it's all in the palm of your hand now.
Exactly. And with the lockdowns going on, I'm sure many people were looking for some kind of stimuli to at least keep them interested throughout the boredom.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, our wallets take a hit on that one.
They do indeed.
And so obviously we did have many measures taken during the lockdowns and throughout the pandemic. Should we be dipping into our super funds right now that it's available?
Really good question. Look, it's been designed for people who are desperate, who are surviving on JobKeeper, or that their hours and income have really had a big downturn. So, yes, for those people who just cannot make ends meet without it, it's been a real godsend for people in that space. But for those where you think, oh, look, it's just a backstop, maybe I'll duck in and just get it anyway just in case, you could actually be robbing your future self by taking money out of superannuation. Most Australians don't have enough to retire on in their superannuation anyway. So pulling, $10,000 or $20,000 out now, especially if you're younger and have the benefit of compounding interest on your side for the next, 20 or 30 years, you could be doing yourself a really big disservice. And the government's also cracked down now and said, look, if they've found that people have been doing it fraudulently and didn't meet the requirements, they could be forced to repay it and even pay back a $12,500 fine on top. So definitely not worth being caught just doing it for fun.
Exactly. It's important. Well, I found not to be taking out the super right now because the interest, it's looking into it, I didn't realise how much and how quickly it could build up. I haven't been working for all that long myself, but I had far more super than I actually thought when I checked when the first super payments come out. Luckily, I didn't withdraw it, and I was fortunate enough to receive other government funding to help me through losing my part-time work, seeing the importance in our super.
The other thing that's really important with that, especially for young people with lower balances, a lot of them have taken it all out completely, closed down their accounts, which also means they've probably lost any valuable insurance cover that they had. And chances are you can't afford to pay it outside of your superannuation fund. But if you become, permanently disabled now or pass away and you've got a young family, you may have no cover at all anymore to provide for yourself or your loved ones. So also something else to take into account when, shutting down a super fund completely. And look, I know young kids have been taking it out going, I just want to pay off my car loan, or, my credit card got a bit out of hand. So, definitely worth having a good long hard look and think before you do that.
Exactly, looking into the fine print and such before making a sometimes rash decision.
When you're young, 10 grand, that's all you're thinking of, isn't it? Woohoo!
Exactly.
Not the purpose of the funds.
And also looking at other government support that Australians have been receiving, we're about to see the second round of the $750 economic support payment be paid out soon. Who will this benefit?
It's mostly those people who are already receiving government allowances. So if you're on JobKeeper or the age pension, that's where those funds are being directed as a second round of payments to help those people on the lowest incomes of all.
And in your opinion, what do you think this payment should be spent on or perhaps not spent on?
Again, probably the discretionary spending where people are going, oh, that new handbag that's on special at Oriton might be just what the doctor ordered. Or, I've heard, people wanting to go out for a big bash, dinner and with friends and that sort of thing. So, look, that might be supporting the local economy, but we also don't know how long this downturn is going to last. And $750 is a lovely amount of money, but for some people it's only 1 or 2 weeks' wages. So to put that aside, as a rainy day fund or against some debt that you may have otherwise not have been able to pay is probably a much better idea than going, woohoo, bonus, let's just spend it. So I think being careful, and especially if JobKeeper is going to finish in September for many different industries, it's important to just have that little buffer. But again, that it won't last long anyway.
Exactly. So perhaps maybe taking a second and thinking what we're spending that extra money on right now.
You really need, the big screen telly.
Exactly. And perhaps just using it as more of a lifeline than just some frivolous money that perhaps we can just, as you said, throw away on that lovely Oriton handbag that we all love, but perhaps don't need. Something that I have to tell myself most times when I'm shopping.
Or have someone, if you know you can't be trusted, have someone who's an accountability buddy that, you know, you can ring up and go, oh, I've got my eye on this, can I do it? And know that they're the sort of person who'll be honest with you and go, you really don't need it, or you know what, not a bad idea. So someone that, can be trusted to bring you back into line if you need it. I used to have one client who'd ring me going, oh, Oriton have got a fabulous special on at the moment. There's a tassel, it's only $50. I'm like, could you put that on the personal loan that you've still got? So, having an accountability buddy can sometimes be a good idea too.
That's a brilliant idea. And just finally, financially, how much help are our senior Australians getting during this pandemic? And what more could we do to perhaps help?
Most are also still able to apply and be in receipt of the age pension. Look, it's a complicated process, and I know a few have thrown up their hands, especially if they've got a more complex situation that the paperwork's very difficult. So if you're someone who can get your head around paperwork, maybe assisting someone with the forms can be a good idea, because as you go through it, it will often say, look, you also need the income and assets declaration or the identification pages. And if they don't have printers and scanners and that sort of thing handy, it can be a great idea to help them out and print off those forms. Or if they're not handy with a computer, log them in, set them up with a MyGov account so that they can be a bit more savvy with it. It is a difficult process to get, but certainly worth it when you get through. They'll also be getting that extra $750 assistance that's coming through. So that's always a great idea to, just give them an idea of how to. Most are quite frugal anyway from the older generation. They've seen bad times before and know that, it's not always a great idea to spend every little windfall we get. So they're usually a little more frugal with what they do with their funds, which is fantastic.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for your time, Amanda. I'm sure many of us will be having to take some of those money tips on board at the moment, and also making sure that we can help out those who need help perhaps to receive extra funding at the moment.
No problem. Happy to help.
I was chatting to Amanda Cassar, who is a financial advisor and the sole director of Wealth Planning Partners. You're on Vision Australia Radio with Geo Donaldson right now on your Friday afternoon.